Lena Martinez, a 27-year-old freelance graphic designer, had always found solace on the tiny balcony of her fourth-floor apartment in Brooklyn. It was her escape from the noise of the city and the relentless buzz of deadlines. Her garden, a collection of mismatched pots with succulents, herbs, and a spindly tomato plant, wasn't much, but it was hers. The jewel of her collection was an unusual flowering vine she'd rescued from the trash behind her building last spring. It had looked half dead, but Lena, with her grandmother's green-thumbed wisdom, coaxed it back to life. The plant thrived in ways she couldn't explain. Its tendrils grew aggressively, wrapping around the railing and even sneaking into the cracks of her brick walls. The blossoms were extraordinary, pale blue with golden centers that seemed to shimmer under the moonlight. One night, as she pulled a late shift at her desk, Lena noticed the vine had borne fruit for the first time. A single orb dangled from a slender stem. It wasn't like any fruit she'd seen, smooth as glass, with a faint glow that pulsed like a heartbeat. Curious, she plucked it. The moment her fingers touched the fruit, a vivid memory surged through her mind. She was 7 again, back in her grandmother's garden in New Mexico. The sun was warm on her face as she crouched by the flower beds, her hands deep in the soil. Her grandmother's laughter filled the air as they worked side by side. The scent of earth, the sound of buzzing bees, it was all so real. Then it was gone. Lena gasped, the fruit slipping from her fingers and shattering on the balcony floor. She stared at the shards, trembling. "What the hell was that?" she whispered to herself. The next morning, Lena found a man standing on the sidewalk below her balcony. He was sharply dressed, his gray suit immaculate, and his dark hair neatly combed. His eyes, however, were what struck her, cold and calculating, like a predator sizing up its prey. "Miss Martinez," he called up, his voice smooth as velvet. Lena froze, clutching her coffee mug. "Yes? May I come up? I'm interested in your plant." Her heart skipped. She didn't know how he'd found out about it, but something about him set her on edge. Against her better judgment, she buzzed him in. When the man stepped into her apartment, his presence seemed to fill the small space. He introduced himself as Mr. Thorne and claimed to work for a global biotech company. "That vine," he said, pointing to the balcony, "is extraordinary. A true rarity. It could revolutionize the pharmaceutical industry. I'd like to buy it." "It's not for sale," Lena said quickly, wrapping her arms around herself. Thorne smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I think you misunderstand. I'm prepared to offer you, let's say, $50,000? Lena's jaw dropped. 50 grand was life-changing money, enough to pay off her student loans, maybe even move out of this tiny apartment. But the thought of giving the plant to this man, of all people, made her stomach churn. "I'm sorry," she said firmly. "It's not for sale." The smile vanished from Thorne's face. His eyes hardened. "You don't know what you're dealing with," he said coldly. "That plant isn't natural. It's hungry." "What do you mean, hungry?" Lena asked, her voice rising. "It feeds on people. Their memories, their hopes, their desires. And it gives back illusions." He stepped closer, his voice lowering to a near whisper. "If you think it's shown you something wonderful, ask yourself, what did it take in return?" After Thorne left, Lena couldn't shake his words. She began to notice strange things. The vine grew faster, its tendrils creeping farther into her apartment. The fruits multiplied, their glow brighter and more hypnotic. One night, after an exhausting day, Lena plucked another fruit. She told herself it was to understand the plant better, but deep down, she wanted another taste of the joy it had given her before. This time, the vision was of her future, a life of success and luxury, working from a beautiful studio in a house filled with light. She felt radiant, confident, and unstoppable. But as the vision faded, a wave of exhaustion washed over her. She staggered, clutching the edge of her desk. Lena decided to confront the plant. She donned gloves, grabbed scissors, and stepped onto the balcony. "I don't know what you are," she muttered, "but you're not staying here." As she approached, the plant seemed to react. Its tendrils quivered, and the blossoms turned toward her as if they were watching. Suddenly, she heard a voice, not in her ears, but in her mind. "Why destroy what brings you joy?" Lena froze. "What?" "You saved me. I can save you. A better life, free of pain, free of fear. I can give it to you. Just let me grow." The voice was soothing, almost maternal, but Lena felt the darkness beneath it. "No," she said aloud, shaking her head. "You're lying. You're using me." The plant's voice grew sharper. "And what will you have without me? Your tiny life, your endless struggles? You think the world will reward you for cutting me down? You'll be nothing." Furious, Lena slashed at the vine. The plant writhed, its tendrils lashing out, but she hacked and tore until it was nothing but shredded leaves and broken roots. The next morning, Lena woke to silence. The vine was gone, but so was the warmth it had brought. Her apartment felt smaller, lonelier. She wondered if she'd made a mistake. But as she stepped onto her balcony, she saw something that stopped her breath. A single sprout had emerged from the pot where the vine once grew. But it wasn't the same plant. It was something new, small, green, and ordinary. Lena smiled, kneeling to touch the fresh leaves. Life would be hard, yes. But it would be real.